Hare Krishna. Welcome to this episode of AVA, Articles of Vaishnavacharyas. And today is episode 5. And today we will be studying a very interesting conversation between supposedly Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura and an Islamic scholar. This was published in the 1931 in the Harmonist magazine. And we're just going to study that whole conversation. Now, we'll just say our Mangalacharan prayers and come to this article. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Very sorry for the delay. I was actually trying to locate this article on the PDF because I have this copy, hard copy from this. It's called Rays of the Harmonist magazine. By the way, a very interesting story about this. This magazine is not exactly the Harmonist. It's called the Rays of the Harmonist. This is actually by one of the Gaudiya Math branches. After Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur's passing away. Now, this was actually published in the year 1999, if I'm not wrong, 1997 or something like that. So, this is a much later publication, but there have been articles from the original Harmonist, which was by Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur. And this one article seems to be from the 1931 issue. In 1931, there are about 24 issues. This is from the April issue. Now, interestingly, if you go here, this is the PDF version of it. Now, here, in this printed version, in the table of contents, you can see talks between talks between a Moulvi and a Vaishnava is written there Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Prabhupada. Right? Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Prabhupada. Now, this is here in this PDF version though, it is written Shripad Nimananda Sevatirtha Nimananda Sevatirtha Bhakti Shastri. So I do not know. I'm guessing now because this is actually I've just seen this PDF version has somebody else's name because here it is written as Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. Now I'm guessing because this is a conversation, right? So somebody would have taken notes while the conversation was going on, and maybe Nimananda Sevatirtham was the one taking notes. This is my guess. But anyway, this conversation is now. After seeing this name, I do not know if this conversation is between Nimananda Sevatirtha and the Moulvi. Moulvi means basically a Islamic scholar. It's called a Moulvi. Um, no, I do not know if the conversation is between Nimananda Sevatirtha and Moulvi or Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura and Moulvi. Um, but from this book and from the PDF put together, I'm just guessing that maybe this Nimananda Sevatirtha has taken notes of the conversation between Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura and the Moulvi. But either way, it's very, very enlightening. And I was in awe when I read this article first. Now, the interesting story about this book is that I found it in our Malaygiri Dham farm in Malaysia the last time I went there, which was about 4 months ago. And that's when I found it. And I was like, what? Really? I never knew this existed even. So then I just looked up what articles are there. Then I found, the one that we did before, Ṭhākur Bhakti Vinod, that also is from this magazine. I read these two articles at the farm there, and so I'm just wanting to, share with you all these two articles. All right, so that's more than enough introduction. Okay, let's get to the article. So the Moulvi, and for reference sake, so sometimes Quran is quoted here by, let's say, Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura for now. So let's go with that Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura is speaking with the Moulvi. Okay? So Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura quotes the Quran sometimes. So I have just opened up a browser here, Quran.com, just to cross reference those verses, just to see how the Muslims translate that. So just for reference. Okay, so let's start the conversation. The Moulvi asks or says, "Many a time I heard you talking on religious subjects. You talk from our holy Quran. I wonder you are still not a Muhammadan." No, I do not know who is this actually now. Now I'm in doubt. Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura or Nimananda Sevatirtha. So the Vaishnava on our side is, "I am glad you appreciate me in the light of the Quran, but I do not understand why you should insist on my becoming a Muhammadan. What is it to become a Muhammadan?" And the Maulvi says, "You have to accept Hazrat Muhammad as his Rasul." Then the Vaishnava, "This I do." Maulvi, "But mere recognition of him as a prophet will not do. You will have to accept the form of worship that he has been so kind to prescribe for us." Now, if you see the way the Maulvi is speaking, he's actually making a lot of sense, right? He's actually making a lot of sense because that's what we also say in our thing. Just to accept Krishna does not mean, oh, if you accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, well, yes, that's good. But now, next is to follow his instruction. What he said we have to do. Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Now, and also those things also, like always think of me, become my devotee, offer your homage unto me, offer your prayers to me. So these things, how they should be conducted, these finer details are given by the spiritual master, and we have to follow such prescribed methods. So he's saying that you just accept recognition of him as the prophet will not do, but you have to also accept the form of worship that has been so kind to that he has been so kind to prescribe for us. Now in our thing also we say Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vithim Vina Aikantike Harer Bhaktir Utpatayaiva Kalpate. So even bhakti to Krishna we have to do in accordance with the Shruti, Smriti Shastra, Purana, and Itihasa, whatever is prescribed in the Vedic literatures, that method we have to take. If we take something else, if we do in our own way without referencing these scriptures and the acharyas, then that's a disturbance to the society. So the line of logic of the Moulvi is correct. We also accept the same logic. Now the Vaishnava, he says, is there any harm if I recognize him as a prophet but follow another, say Christ, or still another, say Sri Chaitanya, Moulvi? There's no harm. All religions have divine revelation as the basis. But Islam is the final and perfect revelation of God made through Hazrat Muhammad. Hazrat means the prophet. It is for this reason that he is called the seal of the prophets. Hence, the spiritual uplift that Islam promises cannot be found in any other of the existing religions of the world. So here, actually this conversation is of a very 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 high standard, in the sense that there was perfect civility. That means perfect respect for each other. At the same time, the points of the scripture are being debated and discussed upon. Um, So anyway, so this Maulvi is saying there's no harm if I recognize Muhammad as a prophet, but follow another prophet. But he says all religions have divine revelation as the basis. So this is another thing. Knowledge of God has to be revealed by Krishna. What is this divine revelation means? That means God has revealed the knowledge. Not that we have speculated something, we have come up with something that is man-made. So Bhagavad Gita is not man-made. Let me actually. How is the lighting for you? Like, is this too purple on my face as well? Let me just switch on the other light and see how it looks. How is it now? Is it better? The color tones. I think the behind is purple is a bit faded, but I think the colors are better now, right? Let me know. Okay. So anyway, which one is better? You let me know. This one or the previous one? Okay. So, but then he says, but Islam is the final and perfect revelation of God made through Hazrat Muhammad. It is for this reason that he is called the seal of the prophets. Hence, the spiritual uplift that Islam promises cannot be found in any other of the existing religions of the world. Okay, they say this is better. Okay, so from next lecture onwards also I will use this setup. Then the Vaishnava, pardon me, do you claim his superiority on the basis of chronology? That means because he is the last, therefore he is the best? That's the question. Moulvi, no, not alone on that. If merit be considered, we shall find God's wisdom made perfect in him. Then he says it's not just the chronology, just because he's the last. He is the last, yes, but also, the wisdom that is, you know, God's wisdom on him is perfect. So he has shared the perfect wisdom. That's what he's saying. So the Vaishnava, will you please show why Islam is superior to all other religions of the world? Moulvi, please do not mind if I happen to speak anything against your faith. Then Vaishnava, certainly not. I am an honest seeker of truth. I am always ready to renounce my faith if I find a better one to attend to. The Moulvi, In the beginning, I must tell you what Islam means. Islam, it means making of peace. That is, peace with God and peace with man. Peace with God means submission to His will, and peace with man means doing good to one's fellow men. A true follower of Islam must not fail to do good even to the meanest of all creatures. The Holy Quran says, "There is no beast on earth nor bird which flies with its two wings, but they are a people like you, and to their Lord shall they return." The Holy Prophet is reported to have said, "Surely there are rewards for doing good to quadrupeds." Quadrupeds means four legged animals, and giving them water to drink. There are rewards for benefiting every animal having a moist liver. So he's quoting some, chapter 6, verse 38. So let's look at the Quran.com. 6, what is that? 638. 6. All living beings roaming the earth and winged birds soaring in the sky are communities like yourselves. We have left nothing out of the record. Then to their Lord they will be gathered all together. So you see, it matches. And I really like the way this website is kind of presented. Very easy to navigate. You know, nice website. Okay. The Holy Prophet is reported to have said, "Surely there are rewards for doing good to quadrupeds and giving them water to drink. There are rewards for benefiting every animal having a moist liver." Evidently, Islam is the religion of peace, miscalled Mohammedanism. Mohammedanism. Um, it is religion of all. Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Dawood, and Jesus all preached it. In fact, the religion of every true prophet was, in its pristine purity, Islam. Now, if you take the definition of Islam, like what he said, peace, making of peace, actually, that is exactly um, true for our Vaishnava religion as well. If the word Islam is the making of peace, then we are also doing the same thing. Because, see, we have, parted ways with God, with Krishna, and we have come into this material world. Now we have to make peace with Krishna again. Krishna is at peace. We are not at peace. So, our lack of peace is because we are not making peace with Krishna. So, we have to make peace with Krishna. And once we do that, then we can make peace with everybody else. Ichha dvesha samuthena dvandamohena bharatam. So, in this material world, because we have not made peace with Krishna, we have this ichha and dvesha. What is that? Desires and aversions, hankerings and aversions. Um, so these things are keeping us from making peace with Krishna and also other living entities. Um, what is that? Titikshava karunikaha suhridah sarvadehinam. Atma, what is that? Suhridah sarvadehinam. Um, how can I forget this? 3:25-21 Srimad Bhagavatam. Ajatashatravah Shantah Sadhavah Sadhubhushanah. Yeah, now I remember. You see, Shantah, he's always peaceful. If Islam is meaning peace, then this is what is this? The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies, he is peaceful, he abides by the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime. Is this not coinciding? So if we really study all scriptures, understanding well that they are also um, ordained by Krishna, of course, in especially in this Kali Yuga, there are so many different forms of religion. I mean, different nomenclatures and different systems of religion. But actually, the ultimate um, principle is one: that to become obedient to God and love Him, to know God and to love Him. Now, although the Moulvi here says that Islam gives the highest um, revelation of the truth, now we contest that. We, if we study our Vedic scriptures, we can see very clearly that the Vedas have the deepest understanding of Krishna. Even that is also not complete. What we have is not complete knowledge of God. Nobody can have complete knowledge of Krishna. Even Brahma himself cannot have complete knowledge of Krishna. But as one's intelligence develops, that much more is revealed by Krishna to that person. For example, Ramayana in on earth is 25,000 verses long, whereas the same Ramayana in the Brahmaloka is 1 billion verses long. Billion, not even million, billion. Just see how much detail is missed out for us. Because we cannot understand, we cannot fathom such instructions. And therefore, what we can fathom and what is necessary for us to become Krishna conscious, that much is revealed to us. So, on the earth, the Vedas have, especially Srimad Bhagavatam, has the absolute zenith of religious principles and knowledge of God and how to get to Him. All this, Srimad Bhagavatam is the pinnacle. We can do a comparative study with every other scripture of the world. Nothing comes even close to Srimad Bhagavatam. So now we accept that, but of course, this Maulvi was thinking or presenting his Quran or Hazrat Muhammad as the most advanced, or what he revealed is the most advanced version of um, the knowledge of God. Yeah, but you see, let's just from these verses, what verses were quoted just now by the Maulvi. Um, it absolutely fits into the picture, fits into the description of Vaishnavism. Islam is actually to, the meaning is to make peace with God and man. Absolutely, that's exactly what Vaishnavism is about. To make peace with Krishna, and thus make peace with everybody else. Shanta. In fact, the religion of every true prophet was, in its pristine purity, Islam. That's what he says. God in Islam is the Lord of the worlds. It denies all plurality of persons in Godhead and any participation of any being in the affairs of the world. Now, here, um, there is a truth, but there is a untruth. Now, here he says that it denies all plurality of persons in Godhead. Now, that means God is one, basically. There is not many gods. And in fact, we also say that. Krishna says, I am the Supreme. Aham sarvasya prabhavo, mattah sarvam pravartate. Aham adirhi devanam. That means he is the origin of all the demigods. They are only demigods, they are not gods. They are not different features of God. They are all demigods. So, God is one. We also accept that. And everybody, but he says, any participation, it denies any participation of any being in the affairs of the world. Now, in its ultimate sense, it's true. The Lord actually does not need anyone to help run the world, help run the universe. Then why are there so many demigods, in charge of the different departments of knowledge, of universal management? That's because he engages them in his service. He has no necessity of them. But if anybody wants to serve him, he will give that chance to serve him. This is mercy. So, plurality of persons in the affairs of the world, participation of them, it denies, well, that is missing out. That description is missing out the quality of mercy of the Supreme Lord, which he exhibits to such living entities and allow them to, manage certain affairs of the universe as demigods. That is Krishna's mercy upon them, that he is engaging them in his service. And also, although Krishna is one and God is one, Advaitam, that means there is no second person. Dvaitam means two. Advaitam means no two. There's no other person who is a competitor of God. No, God is one. But Anantarupam, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam. In the personality of Godhead, there are plurality of persons in that sense, because he comes in various different forms, and not only in this material world, also in the spiritual world. So he exists in multifarious forms. So all these forms are not different from one another, but at the same time, they are not one person. It's Vishnu Tattva. Tattva is one. The principle is one, Vishnu Tattva. But Krishna and Balaram are two different persons. But there is complete unity between them. So this is to expand his pastimes. He expands himself, even though he is Vishnu Tattva. He expands himself in so many forms, multitude of forms, infinite forms, as Godhead. So of course, this is a much deeper knowledge, which for a person of rudimentary faith is difficult to comprehend. And therefore, we consider Islam and other religions also is very rudimentary, but it is not false. Rudimentary for a beginner. Um, Actually, non-Vedic religions are not for very highly advanced persons. You see, if you see where Muhammad was preaching, Hazrat Muhammad, he was preaching to the nomadic community in the, in the Middle East. That's where it started. And they were all nomads, and they were not very highly cultured, not like in Bharat. Bharat has been the most, um, you know, advanced civilization for millions of years. It's only now that it is, in Kali Yuga, it has like kind of taken a back seat, both spiritually and materially. But in every other yuga, even to the vast majority in Kali Yuga as well, Bharat is the most advanced. Bharat has the most advanced civilization, advanced religious culture in the world. So anyway, um, this is what he said: denies all plurality of persons in Godhead and any participation of any being in the affairs of the world. There is an ayat in Surah Ikhlas which runs thus: Lum elid olum elad. I don't know, I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly. This means God neither gives birth to nor is given birth to. Anadir Adir Govinda. And in fact, although he says he's our father, that is only in relation to the material world. It says, Tasam, what is that? Sarva Yonishu Kaunteya Murtaya Sambhavantiya Tasam Brahma Mahadyonir Aham Bij Pradah Pitam. So this Mahadyoni, this material energy, is impregnated by the Supreme Father, Krishna, Vishnu, by his glance, which is manifested as Lord Shiva, and then it's done. But that is in the case of the material world, when there is a birth of the material, the living entity in the particular body. But actually, the living entities are eternal. We're as eternal as the Lord. Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam, Ego Bahunam Yo Vidadhati Kama. He maintains us, certainly, but we were not born at any time. We're all eternal. So this means, so in that ayat, that verse, it is said, this means God neither gives birth to nor is given birth to. So of course there is no father and mother of God, Krishna. But of course he accepts his devotees as father and mother. That's a different thing. That's a higher principle. Otherwise he is Anadir. He has no other origin. Adir, he is the origin of everything. So then he continues, that Moulvi continues, in the Bible, Christ proclaims himself as the Son of God. In the Bhagavad, Krishna is born as the son of Nanda. So he's saying that Krishna is also born as son of Nanda. But God, according to Quran, is neither given birth to nor he gives birth. So Christ, he is given birth to by God, and Krishna is given birth to by Nanda Maharaj. So he's making his point like this. In another ayat of the same surah means the chapter, if I'm not wrong. Ayat is the verse. It is stated, Kol huwa Allahu ahad. This means that God is self-sufficient. We also have that. Swarat, Abhigyan Swarat, Atmarama, self-sufficient. Nijalabha Purna. Nijalabha Purna means self-sufficient. Prahlad Maharaj says that in the Srimad Bhagavatam 7, 9, 11. And Shadaishwarya Purna means he is, full with all six opulences. He is self-sufficient. He doesn't need anything from anyone else. He depends on none, but everyone depends on him. Yes. Eko bahunam yu vidadhati kaman. There is God and none but God. Vasudeva sarvamiti. So all these statements can be corroborated by our Vedic evidence. See? So that's why I say this is quite a very very dignified and high class discussion, which I wanted to share with you all because of that. But then he says, but Krishna of the Bhagavad depends on Brahma for the creation, on Vishnu for its maintenance, and on Shiva for its destruction. There is thus an ever-existent class of devas sharing with God in the divine qualities. So there are many gods instead of one. So this is what he's saying. You all have many gods instead of one. We only have one. He depends on others. He depends on Brahma for creation. He depends on Vishnu for maintenance. He depends on Shiva for destruction. So he is not self-sufficient. He cannot do everything himself. So he's depending on the devatas. This is the misconception of the Moulvi here. And then he further says, again, Hindus believe in the incarnate. So the reason why he is making a case here, and it's actually a valid case, that to accept one God and only one is higher than to accept many gods. Why? Because if God is so powerful, then he is self-sufficient. He doesn't need anyone else. If so many people together are doing, that means they're not as powerful. Each is not as powerful. So they depend on the other. That's like us. Like we also depend on, we have a company or we have a government or we have an establishment where, this person does this, that person does that. A CEO of a company depends on all of his employees for, his company to run. The head of the country depends on, all of the ministers and subdivisional workers and everybody for his work to be done. So he depends on them. See, that is something which is common in this world. And if God is also like that, then that's not very powerful. That's his point. If he's really, really, really powerful, then he doesn't need anyone else. That is the definition of God, and that is actually fact. Krishna says, all the devatas, they have gotten only power from me. They cannot do anything on their own. And that's why finally Krishna says, Sarvadharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja. Surrender unto me exclusively, without sharing your surrender among the devatas and me. See? Now, again, Hindus believe in the incarnation of God, but according to Quran, such incarnation of God is impossible. Every religion aims at communion with God, but this communion is not attained by bringing him down in the shape of man. Now, here is what he's saying. Now, every religion, he says, wants to, promises that the candidate will meet God. But he says the Quran promises that you meet God in his place, not that God will come to our place and meet us in our form and shape. That is like blasphemy. How can he have a form like us? An incarnation, which means he descends. Avatar means one who descends. Why should God come to this world? He cannot come. God will never be so low as to descend to this material world. We are low, that's why we are here. We are low class beings. We are here. And if you want to meet God, we have to, improve ourselves and become pure and meet Him in His place. That's the point he's trying to make. So he's saying, but this communion is not attained by bringing him down in the shape of man. And the Vaishnava, he says, thank you. Now, before I enter into the discussion of the merit of all that you have said, I want to ask you one thing. Please tell me in whose light you interpret the Quranic texts. Moulvi. Why? Everyone who knows Arabic can read the Quran and interpret it. The Vaishnava. Do you not then mistake empiricism for God's knowledge? That means if everybody can interpret the Quran because they can read Arabic, so is that not subject to then speculations? If everybody can interpret in their own way, who can read Arabic, then maybe there will be differences in understanding. So all those differences are true. Can all of them be true? So empiricism means this speculative knowledge. Do you not then mistake speculation for God's knowledge? So if I interpret these words in this way, and then I think that that is God's word, that's what God intended to say, but actually that is what I understood, then how can I be sure that what I'm thinking is what God has intended to say? This is even for us. In our Vedic scriptures, we cannot just interpret in our own way. We have to receive from parampara system. It's not that anyone who knows Sanskrit can read and understand Bhagavad Gita. We don't say that. Now he is saying this Moulvi, everyone who knows Arabic can read the Quran and interpret it. Now we don't say that. Anyone who knows Sanskrit can interpret it. Bhagavad Gita. No. Evam parampara praptam. Because the secret is not in the knowledge. And if you remember the last article that we have done, Bhaktisiddhānta Ṭhākura, there this very point is there. Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura makes the point that if anybody thinks that if one reads Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit language, he will understand it better, then he is mistaken. And if anybody thinks any language is okay, in understanding Bhagavad Gita, he is also mistaken, because neither of them are right. The right thing is that we have to hear from a pure devotee, and it doesn't matter which language. Even in the worst language, even in the most barbaric language, the pure devotee knows how to express the message of God, the message of Krishna. This is the power of the pure devotee. The knowledge may be perfect or imperfect, it doesn't matter at all. English actually is a very barbaric language. It's a very, very unrefined language, English. But Srila Prabhupada made the knowledge of Krishna available so easily even to an English-speaking person. Now I am more comfortable in English than any other language, even my mother tongue, honestly. And I'm not saying it by being proud of it. Now, looking back, I wish I learned Hindi and Telugu and even Sanskrit more diligently when I was a student, but somehow I did not. Probably because we were so, ingrained with the Western ideologies that English became our medium of instruction. English is what we became comfortable with. Having said that, even though this language is not perfect at all, but when it comes from a pure devotee, it doesn't matter which language. The message is so perfect. Some people, when we sell books, some people say, I would like to read in Hindi because it touches the heart more, it feels more closer to home. I said, okay, if you like Hindi, you read it in Hindi. Read first. So I don't go into much of an argument with them. But actually, they're wrong. They're wrong. In Hindi also it will work. It's not that because it is Hindi, it will work. No. Despite being Hindi or English or anything, it will work. Not because of, but despite of. Despite. In spite of. In spite of any other in spite of any language. In spite of English. In spite of any language you take, it will still act because it is coming from a pure devotee. It's not because of the language, but in spite of the language. So the dharmasya tattvam nihito guhayam mahajano yena gatah sa pantha. What does it mean? So this is from the Mahabharata, Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, chapter 17, text 186. So if you go there, तर्को प्रतिष्ठः श्रुतयो विभिन्ना नासा वृषिर्यस्य मतं न भिन्नं धर्मस्य तत्त्वं निहितं गुहायां महाजनो येन गतः स पंथाः. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, continued, dry arguments are inconclusive. So if you just debate and argue, it will be inconclusive. So debates are not the way to approach absolute knowledge of religious principles and religious principles. Religious principles are basically how to reach the absolute truth. That is religion. So, how to approach the Lord. Upanayanam means approaching. So, we are going closer to God by accepting a spiritual master. Otherwise, we cannot go closer to God. So, that is the meaning of Upanayanam, sitting near. So, Tarko Pratishtha. By Tarka means arguments, debates. We cannot we cannot ascertain the solid truth about religious principles. Tarko apratishtham. Shrutayo vibhinna. So many scriptures are there, and each appears different in different directions. It is taking the practitioner. Even among Vedic scriptures, there are tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic scriptures, and of course there is which is Amalam Puranam, which is transcendental scripture, Bhagavatam. So all these appear to direct the reader in different directions. It's not different directions, same direction, but different so-called end. In the same direction, all are going to, all the Vedic scriptures are taking one towards, surrendering to Krishna. But one scripture may take from point, suppose there are 100 steps in the ladder or a staircase. One scripture, the Tamasic scripture, maybe it will take you from stair 1 to the stair 10, maybe. That is the end of following that scripture. Then after that, one has to take hold of the next level of worship, and like that, he has to climb all the way. The direction is upward, so that direction is the same, but the levels to which this tamasic and rajasic and sattvic scriptures take one to are maybe different. So they may, for a person who is not guided by a pure devotee, these all appear to be of different intentions and directions and everything, but it's not. So here, Shrutayo Vibhinna. So many scriptures are saying so many things, so which is correct? Nasa Vrishiryasya Matam na Bhinnam. A rishi cannot be really called a rishi if he differs in opinion with another rishi. By definition, a muni or a rishi, he has his own unique take on the absolute truth. So if everybody has their own opinion, then which is actually correct? So Nasa Vrishiryasya Matam na Bhinnam. So to debate is not the right way to reach God. To study many scriptures is not the right way to reach God. To visit many kinds of people and hear from them is not also the right way to reach the correct conclusion about God and religious principles. But what is the correct conclusion? Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam. It's carefully hidden. The solid truth is carefully hidden. Nihitam guhayam mahajano yena gatah sapantha. So let's read the translation. Dry arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which religious principles are understood. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. So this person may sometimes be referred to as Rishi or Muni, like a Narada Muni. Vyasa Rishi. So, Vyasa Maharshi. So, they may be called Rishi or Muni, but actually they are the most advanced devotees, pure devotees of Krishna. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self realized person. Consequently, as the Shastras confirm, one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajans advocate. Now, we may speculate, oh, self realized person, unadulterated, self realized person. Oh, maybe this person is unadulterated, that person is unadulterated. Now, let's see who is this kind of person. So, Yamaraj, who is also one of them actually, names them for us. Um, स्वयंभूर्नारदः शम्भुः कुमारः कपिलो मनुः प्रह्लादो जनको भीष्मो बलिर्वैयासकिर्वयम् द्वादशैते विजानीमो धर्मं भागवतं भटाः गुह्यं विशुद्धं दुर्बोधं यं ज्ञात्वामृतमश्नुते गुह्यं. What is that? This word is used in the previous verse. What is that? Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam. And here guhyam rahasyam hetaduttamam. Bhaktosime me sakha cheti rahasyam hi etaduttamam. Krishna says to Arjuna in the 4th chapter, 3rd verse of Bhagavad Gita. Because you are my devotee and friend, Arjuna, you can understand this rahasyam, this guhyam, this dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam. See, nihitam guhayam, nihitam, what is nihitam? Placed guhayam in the heart. Guha means cave. Guhayam means the heart, the cave of the heart. Usually, previously treasures they used to store in caves somewhere, hiding place. So, the heart of an unadulterated person is like the cave in which the treasure of religious principles is hidden. And he knows, Mahajana. And who is this Mahajana? Not anybody. Krishna defines Mahajana. What is that? Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha sudurlabha. So Mahatma is who? He who surrenders to Krishna in full knowledge. So Mahajana, Mahatma, same thing. So Mahatma cannot be used for anybody else than a pure devotee of Krishna. And Krishna also says to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktosi me sakha cheti, you are my friend and devotee. And therefore rahasyam hetaduttamam. I am revealing to you this most secret of all secrets. Rahasyam hetaduttamam. Highest secret. I am revealing to you. So, who are the Mahajanas, Mahatmas here? Lord Brahma, Bhagavan Narada, Lord Shiva, the 4 Kumaras, Lord Kapila, son of Devahuti, Swayambhuva Manu, Prahlad Maharaj, Janak Maharaj, grandfather Bhishma, Bali Maharaj, Shukadev Goswami, and I myself know the real religious principle. Now, all of them are devotees. Not one of them is not a devotee of Krishna. So that means Mahajan, they know. And whoever coming in the parampara system, the acharyas, they are all Mahajans, Mahatmas. So it is very clear who will actually know the real religious principles. So it is not just by language. Yeah? So then Vaishnava, either Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura or that Nimananda Sevatirtha. So either of them. So do you not then make men mistake empiricism for God's knowledge? So you may speculate something and you may take that for God's knowledge. Is that a possibility? Isn't that a possibility? Then Moulvi says, how? In the Vaishnava. There is, I believe, an ayat in the Quran like this. Jelika Fadullahe Entihe Mai Asahu. Now, I may not be pronouncing it well. Which means this knowledge is the gift of God. He gives it to him whom he chooses. This is interesting. So these same thing we also have नायमात्मा प्रवचनेन लभ्यो न मेधया न बहुना श्रुतेन यमैवैष वृणुते तेन लभ्यस् तस्यैष आत्मा विवृणुते तनुं स्वाम. Exactly the same thing. The Lord does not reveal to anyone just because he is doing lectures, of course, speculative way, and one who is very intelligent can understand God. No, whom he himself chooses, who God chooses, that person only can understand. And who does God choose? Like Krishna chose Arjuna because he bhakto se mein sakha chate. So he will only choose bhakta. So we have to become bhakta in order to be chosen by Krishna in order to understand this knowledge. So that is also stated in the Quran, it seems. Now, I'm not going to search this in the Quran. It must be there somewhere. If we go there, maybe I don't know if we can search by word though. How to search? I don't know if it works. This thing. What is the word? Jalika Fadlullah hai, Fadlullah hai. You see, maybe it's not one word. Maybe it's two words. I don't know how it is split there. So okay, never mind. I think those who are Islamic scholars, they will know. Okay, anyway, I have no time to delve into each and every of these citations. But anyway, the point is clear, and we also have the same understanding. See, he gives it to him whom he chooses. I remember to have read it. I remember to have read in Surah Fatiha an ayat which runs thus: Shiralal Lajina an Anata Alehim. This means, lead us, O God, in the path of those whom thou hast favored. Then the Moulvi says, yes, there are. These verses are correct. There are these verses. So, you see, the verse also says, O God, please lead us in the path of those whom you have favored. Thou hast favored. So, the Lord favors his devotees. And so, the prayer is, O God, please let me follow the path of the devotees. And is that not every single devotee's prayer? Prahlad Maharaj is praying, King Kulashekar is praying, Kunti Devi is praying. Everybody is praying the same thing, that please engage me in the service of your devotee. Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura is singing the same thing. I don't mind being an ant in the house of a devotee. So dāsa dāsānu dāsa bhritya bhrityasya, what is that? Tvadbhritya bhritya paricāraka bhritya bhritya bhrityasya bhritya smara itimam smaralokanatha. So the whole point is, please engage me in the service of your devotees and let me follow their path. And Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, follow their path who have come to me. 4th chapter, 15th verse. The other day I showed this. एवं ज्ञात्वा कृतं कर्म पूर्वैरपि मुमुक्षुभिः कुरु कर्म एव तस्मात् त्वं पूर्वैः पूर्वतरं कृतम्. All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore, you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. So, same point, you see. Hence, so long as we are not chosen by him as ones to know him, we have no right to speak of him. So, the Vaishnava, apparently, probably Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, is saying, hence, so long as we are not chosen by him as ones to know him, we have no right to speak of him. So that means only a pure devotee has the right to speak about Krishna. Now, why am I speaking then? We are repeating the words of pure devotee, then it's okay. But otherwise, we cannot on our own read the Arabic or the Sanskrit and speak on religious subjects just because we know a language. No. Then the Vaishnava continues, there is always the danger when the blind lead the blind. So when I'm speaking here in this class, I'm not led by the blind. I am blind, but I'm not led by the blind. Prabhupada is not blind. I may be blind, but if I hold his hand, I will be on the right path. That's why the prayer of the Quran also is, please allow us to follow the path of those whom you have favored. So that is the proper path. When we are not qualified, we should hold the hand of those who are qualified, or rather even hold a leg, feet. So in this way we can also tread the path. So in that context only are we doing these classes. Okay? We must always trust heaven's light for our guidance. That means, Krishna's guidance. We must always trust his guidance. Our knowledge that is based on our experience can never claim to be perfect. Hence, such a knowledge, if employed in our spiritual investigation, will only give us the perverted view of the divinity. So this is correct. This is Mayavad. Neti, neti, neti. Oh, the God is not this, not that, not this, not that. But what it is, I don't know. Then the Moulvi says, yes, but how can we say that this man or that man has not been favored by him? How do we come to that? How to know who is favored, who is not? So then the Vaishnava. We cannot equally say that this man or that man is favored by him because he holds a great academic qualification. See, so prior to this, the Moulvi said, anybody who knows Arabic can read the Quran and understand. But now, you know, the devotee, he quoted from the Quran saying that, please, oh God, please allow us to follow those who have been favored by you. So those who are favored by you can understand, and therefore we want to follow their path. So not everybody who reads Arabic is favored by the Lord, or not everybody who reads Sanskrit is favored by the Lord. Who the Lord favors then? How to come to that? How to understand? That's the point he's making. See how refined the argument is. So refined. How can we say, the small says, how can we say that this man or that man has not been favored? Then now the Vaishnava, he puts the point. We cannot equally say that this man or that man is favored by him because he holds a great academical qualification, or just because he's an expert in Arabic, then he's favored by them. No, that's not. Hazrat Muhammad had none of it, yet he was chosen. And wow, this is even a stronger point because he's saying anybody who knows Arabic can read the Quran, but Hazrat Muhammad was an illiterate. He did not know how to read and write. So the Vaishnava's point is Hazrat Muhammad had none of it. He did not have academic qualification, yet he was chosen. In our case, Gaurkishore Das Babaji also was chosen. In fact, now the Muslims themselves do not know this, but a devotee like, of the caliber of Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura and Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, they can see the real truth, which even the so-called religionists, they cannot see. For example, Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura said that Hazrat Muhammad is actually in the Sakhyaras with the Lord, in the mood of friendship with the Lord. Now that is unknown. Those rasas even are unknown to the Islamic scholars. So, that is very deep knowledge. That is called dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam. The pure devotee can see everything. Of course, what the Lord wants him to see. But you see, he can see what Muhammad's position is. But those who may follow him may not know. Like Buddha. Buddhists do not know who Buddha is. Buddha is actually Krishna. They don't know that. He is God, but they don't know that. We know. Similarly, Hazrat Muhammad is a very confidential devotee of God, which they also accept. But what mood is he in that they do not know? But Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura has revealed that he is in the Sakhyaras. He says it in this context, Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura, that all the rasas have gone beyond the borders of Bharat, India, and have been solidly established in other parts of the world. Then he says dāsa was accepted by Moses, and then Sakhyaras in Muhammad, Vatsalya in Jesus Christ, but Madhurya has not gone out of the borders of India. And then he predicted, next sentence, Soon there will be a powerful personality who will travel unrestricted in this world and bring the Madhurya Ras beyond the borders of India. And that is Srila Prabhupada. And at that time, mind you, aeroplanes were not yet invented when he predicted that. And still he predicted that. So, this is very powerful stuff, very powerful knowledge. So, it's not dependent on material academic education. No. So, the Moulvi says he is a prophet because the Vaishnava said Hazrat Muhammad had no academical qualification, but yet he was chosen by God. Moulvi says he is a prophet, a God sent one. The case is quite different with such ones. Then the Vaishnava says, at least you must look for a Kamal Pir to lead you. I don't know what Kamal Pir is. Moulvi, you see, I have lost all faith in so called peers and fakirs. They are all rogues. Fakirs are actually Muslim mendicants. So there have been, I think, a lot of, even the Muslim scholar himself says, the Moulvi says, I have lost all faith in this, in the so-called peers and fakirs. I think peer is something like another saint or something like that. But he said, I have lost all faith in them. They're all rogues. Then Vaishnava, he says, at least you must look for a, no, he says, there may be real peers also. Moulvi, if there are any such, we are not sure to find them. The Vaishnava. Yes, but that is no reason why you should go without a guide. It's because you are not sure to find, so therefore I will go without a guide. That's not. Hazrat Muhammad is reported to have said, Manla Sekha Lahu Falatuhu Shaitanun, which means those who have no guide are guided by the Satan, or in our words, Maya. So those who have no guru, bona fide spiritual master, they are guided by Maya. And that is explained in this verse. পিশাচি পাইলে যেন মতে ছন্ন হয় মায়াগ্রস্ত জীবের হয় সেই ভাব উদয়. Those who are under the under the control of Maya, they are like ghostly haunted. They don't have a spiritual guide, and they are lost. They are called anatha. That means they are orphans. Those who have no guru, just like those who have no father and mother is orphan. Those who have no guru, bona fide guru, he is also an orphan. And those who do not accept God, they are also orphans. So you see, Hazrat Muhammad also said those who have no guide are guided by Satan. Absolutely right. Then he said, guide you must have. You cannot explain divine things in your own way. One must first reach that plane of spiritual consciousness where they become manifest and then go to preach them. Our mind, however trained or educated it may be, cannot be employed in handling divine things, or the latter will lose their divine character. Yes. And the Moulvi says, where and how to get such a Kamel Pir who is a Momen, faithful, and not Monafek, hypocrite, and who by his Tauja, initiation, can make the heart of the murid, disciple, rebound with the name of Allah and unfold unto him his hidden secrets. Very, very, very valid, bona fide question. Then Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. It is not possible for us to know who is Momen and who is Monafek. But if we are sincere, God is sure to guide us. Through His grace, we are to find out one such guide. So this is the point. Who is faithful, who is a hypocrite, who is actually initiated, who is a disciple, who is not. This can be understood by those who are sincere. If we are sincere in actually finding out God, then God is sure to guide us. Because He's Chaitya Guru. He's sitting in our heart and He will guide us to the right person if we are sincere. Through His grace, we are to find out one such guide. I hear in the Quran there is a teaching like this. My Ayad Dillahu Fala Mudillalahu, O my Yudil Yudlillahu Fala Hadiyalahu. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, which means none can lead him astray whom Allah guides aright, and none can guide him aright whom Allah guides astray. Wow, superb, isn't it? Mare Krishna Rakhe Krishna Mare ke. Similarly, if Krishna wants him to be misled, no one can save him, and if Krishna wants him to be led properly, no one can lead him astray. But why would Krishna want him to be led astray in the first place? So Krishna doesn't want, but because he sees our direction, then he thinks that okay, if you are bewildered, it is better for you. You learn lesson first. So, and that's how he leads. And that's why Krishna says in the 16th chapter, for those who are demoniac, I cast them into lower and lower species. Tanaham dvishatah kruran samsareshu naradhaman. I will cast them into lower and lower species. So you see, so he does guide them astray. None can lead him astray whom Allah guides aright, and none can guide him aright whom Allah guides astray. Very nice. Moulvi, do you mean to say that we have hitherto been not sincere? Means, and we all of us have been not sincere. That's why we are not. That's why we are not sure of whether who is right and who's wrong. Then Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, that is for you to judge. The sincere never seek God for their own pleasure. They want to serve Him, but expect no service from Him in return. In the Quran, we find, and among men is he who sells himself to seek the pleasure of Allah, and Allah is affectionate to the servants. What? Allah is affectionate to the servants. Oh, chapter 2, text 207. Lust after flesh makes men self seeking. In the Bible, the qualification of one that receives love of God has been stated thus: love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. So this is this is absolutely our philosophy, isn't it? If we are too materialistic, if we have too much attachment in this world, then we cannot be attached to Krishna. Lust after flesh makes men self-seeking. That means to lust after this body, which is nothing but flesh. Moulvi, do you mean to say a sincere seeker of truth must not have any worldly attachment? Then Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, yes, he should not have any. Moulvi, then why has God created this world? Is it not for our enjoyment? In the Vaishnava, it may be for our punishment as well. Why only our enjoyment? It may be for our punishment as well. God is the sole enjoyer, and we, as His servants, minister to His enjoyment. The servant is not the master. We are turned out as a thief as soon as we entertain a desire to enjoy. God does not want to live in heaven with a thief. We fall. Paradise is lost to us. If we want to regain it, we must do so through service. Service is the fundamental function of the soul. See how refined the explanation is. God does not want to live in a heaven with a thief. Of course, heaven in this sense is not the heavenly planets in the material world, but the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha. But for their understanding, it's heaven. See? And therefore we fall. We fell because we wanted to go against Krishna. And if we want to regain paradise, we must do so through service. So, in this one simple way, he explained that those who, because he's asking, his question is the world not for our enjoyment? It can be for punishment also. And actually, the God alone should enjoy. And we all must cooperate in his enjoyment. The servant is not the master. If the servant in the palace wants to enjoy the soft bed of the master, then he is not a servant anymore. Paradise is lost to us. If you want to regain it, you must do so through service. Service is the fundamental function of the soul. Love of worldly things is a sin. The lust of the flesh that always allures us to commit it is not of the Father. So, the lust is not from the Father, from Krishna. Christ says, "Whosoever abideth in him sinneth not." Whoever abideth in him sinneth not. So, whoever abides by the rules of Krishna, he doesn't sin. That's a fact. The devotee commits no sin. Neither known him. Sorry. Whosoever sinneth hath not seen him, neither known him. So the sinful people cannot understand or see God. Evidently, then, one who does not know him cannot interpret him. You see? So he quoted Jesus Christ saying that who does not abide in him. uh, So if one tries to enjoy this world, that is a qualification of a person who cannot understand God. Because those who lust of the flesh means, who like to gratify the body, the senses, sense gratification. So they are sinners. Kashtan kaman arhate vidbhujam ye nasadhu manya. This is all not good. This is all sin. So now, aghayur indriya rama. Aghayur indriya rama. That means for the satisfaction of the senses, we spend our whole life in sin. So that's exactly what is said by Jesus as well. Whosoever abideth in him sinneth not. Whoever sinneth hath not seen him, neither known him. So sinful people cannot understand God. So he who is an enjoyer of this material world is a sinner who cannot understand God. That's the point here. Evidently, then one who does not know him cannot interpret him. So if he is enjoying this world, he may know Arabic, but he cannot interpret the words of the Quran. He cannot understand the true meaning of the Quran. He cannot either certify to the correction of one such interpretation. You cannot definitely say whether the interpretation of Quran of such and such man is correct. So that means neither can he interpret the Quran, nor can he examine the interpretation of another person. He's completely ignorant. He cannot. Who's not guided by a proper, pure devotee, he cannot understand. From here you can understand how clarity of thought, even though the Moulvi is speaking a lot of sense here, Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura is so sharp, you know, in his explanation that is irrefutable. I mean, who can deny his arguments? And very respectfully he has done that. See? So now, the Moulvi then says, you see, the Bible has been several times recast. So we do not get the actual teachings of Christ. So it has been interpreted many times, many versions of it is there. So we do not know which is the actual teachings of Christ. So you're quoting from, Bible, Christ said this and that, but, I don't know who interpreted that first. Then Vaishnava, Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, he says, maybe, but truth is there. If anything laid down in the Bible is corroborated by what is laid down in the Quran, I think you cannot have any objection to accept it as truth. That means whatever said in the Bible, if it is said in the Quran, then it's consistent, right? So how can I deny that? Yeah, maybe there is some changes here and there, but if it is consistent, then what is wrong? You have to accept it. At least the truth is in the above sayings of Christ is self-evident. Self-evident. All religions teach it. Hazrat Muhammad, I believe, does not teach anything different. His whole life is a life of renunciation. Now, some people may argue, oh, he married a young girl and all that. Now, the activities of an acharya are very difficult to understand. Um, that aside, the mission of Hazrat Muhammad, we should understand any of these personalities' lives through a pure devotee. Then we will have actual understanding. Hazrat Muhammad, I believe, does not teach anything different. Now, why an acharya does certain things, sometimes we cannot understand. But we cannot quickly jump to conclusions. So we cannot say something blasphemous towards Hazrat Muhammad. Now, here he said his whole life is a life of renunciation. Repeatedly he said, Al Fakru Fakiri, which means poverty is my pride. At the time of his death, he called his wife Ayesha to his bed and said, Ayesha, I cannot depart peacefully. And why? I think you retain some money in the house. She said, Yes, my lord, I have 4 gold mohars. Give them, said he, to the poor. Ah, what shall I answer to Allah? So that's what he said. So you see, this is his mentality. Moulvi. Then I think we should give up the job altogether as hopeless. The cent percent of the so-called religious people of the world are really not religious. So now he is beginning to understand. Moulvi is saying, oh, then I think we should give up the job altogether as hopeless. Of course, it's a bit of an extreme, but he's saying the 10% of the so-called religious people of this world are really not religious then. This is where one understands what real religion actually is. When one wants nothing other than Krishna. And that was Hazrat Muhammad's mentality. So now he's understanding, oh, until now he was saying, oh, why not? It is for our enjoyment. Here are very refined rebuttal to that. So then the Vaishnava says, it is so. Yes. 10% of the religious people are not religious. And hence we find even those who talk of wisdom as a gift from God in the form of revelation fighting among themselves today for difference of their opinions. Now, we may say, well, that is the case with also you, Hare Krishnas, who are fighting, ISKCON, Ritvik, Gaudimat, this and that, Narayan Maharaj and all that. Again, in bhakti, there is pure bhakti, that means authorized bhakti, and there is unauthorized bhakti. And the ones who are authorized are always advised to keep away from those who are unauthorized, even in the realm of bhakti. Because it looks similar, but it's not similar. It's not similar. The destination is totally opposite. Krishna. This talk is very long actually. So we may do in few parts actually. Not even in one. Let's see how it goes. What's the time? 9:40 already. But then Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura continues, but why should we give up this as a hopeless task? It is true we have attachment for the things of the world, but should we try to strengthen it or lessen it? The sincere are those who do not identify themselves with their bodies and are not much concerned with the things that interest these bodies. God is ever vigilant, and the sincere endeavors of an honest devotee will not surely go unheeded by him. He is sure to supply you a guide. Moulvi. Yes, but how can I say that the interpretation of such and such man is not correct? Especially when all endorse it. And the Vaishnava. Certainly we cannot say no as well. It is, however, not safe to accord sanction to any merely on the numerical strength of his followers. See, certainly we cannot say no as well if everybody is saying and endorsing something. If all the scholars, are endorsing a certain thing, we cannot say no to that as well. He is saying, how can I say that thing is not correct? Yeah, certainly we cannot say no as well. It may not be correct also. It is, however, not safe to accord sanction to any merely on the numerical strength of his followers. Or just because more people follow this thing, therefore that is right. No, that should never be the point. Numbers are not, numbers don't speak truth. No? In fact, Krishna says, Manushanam sahasreshu kaschit yatati siddhaye yatataamapi siddhanam kaschin vettimam tattvata. So, out of billions of people, one will actually understand Krishna and surrender to him and become his devotee. So, numerically, if you see, the strength is hopeless. Let us, for the time being, confine ourselves to the academical study of the problems and see if we can approve them with reason. So he's saying, let's not worry about the cent percent of the people of the world, or whatever percentage of people of the world. That doesn't matter actually. Let us, for the time being, confine ourselves to the academical study of the problems and see if we can approve them with reason. Let's apply our reasoning here. Let's not worry about the numbers of how many following this and how many following this ideology or whatever. Let's put that aside. That's not relevant. That's just some noise. Let's study the actual subject at hand. There had gone many teachers before Muhammad. I hear their number is more than a lakh. Oh, that means 100,000. Now, do you think they preached the same gospel? Moulvi. Evidently, they taught different gospels when we see that the Quran is not the Bible. But the fundamental principles of their teachings were the same. Vaishnava. Again, you cannot say that all preached in the same place every time. Moulvi, there's no history. The Vaishnava. At least this does not stand to reason. The world is indeed very large and is inhabited by many peoples. God cannot choose only one people and leave attending to the rest. Moulvi, no, he cannot. He is the Lord of all. Vaishnava. Evidently then, gospel preached to a people in one place may be different from what is preached to another in some other place, as no two peoples are alike in their spiritual evolution. So here the point is, everybody is in their own level of advancement, and depending on their position in understand or surrender to Krishna, they have to be instructed differently. You know, but that does not mean it's a different instruction altogether. No, how to elevate them to the same thing. Uh, but according to time, place, and circumstances, Deshakala Patra, according to that, these religious principles are introduced to elevate the mankind of that people. The revelation is made to suit the spiritual evolution of a people. We cannot receive what we do not want. Nay, even to a par- practical uh, practical people, God may reveal himself in different colors at his different stages of evolution. You cannot preach Quran to those who appreciate the Bible, nor to those who have the inclination to appreciate the Bhagavat. Each is a revelation considered best in reference to the people to whom it was revealed. The difference in their philosophies is discernible only as long as they are studied without such reference. Hmm. You see, this is a very important point. The difference in their philosophies is discernible only as long as they are studied without such reference. That means, if we just impartially um, juxtapose or keep side by side the Bhagavad and the Quran without any context of why, where Bhagavatam was spoken and where Quran, in which circumstances Bhagavat was spoken and in which circumstances the Quran was spoken. If you don't take that into consideration and if you just juxtapose them, then we may find some contrary, points. But that's why it is said here, each is a revelation considered best in reference to the people to whom it is revealed. The difference in their philosophies is discernible. That means we can only notice the difference as long as they're studied without such reference of where they are, why they are, spoken. But if we know the reference, okay, he spoke to a downtrodden community and he was trying to elevate them. Okay, then we understand why um, Hazrat Muhammad only revealed very rudimentary knowledge about God as compared to the Bhagavatam. Although he was, knowledgeable himself, but he only, you know, revealed that much which people can understand of the people that he spoke to. Does not mean that Hazrat Muhammad is something less of a prophet than the acharyas in our Vaishnava line. We're not saying that. But according to the time, place, and circumstance, he revealed as much as is necessary and as much as is understandable by those people. And as I said already before, even the Bhagavatam does not have the full knowledge, because the same Bhagavatam can be expanded upon unlimitedly in other planets, in higher planets. So, um, we cannot say that what we have is the highest. On earth, yes, it is the highest. And if we know the Bhagavatam, we can know everything. The highest conclusions are there, but the more nuanced aspects, the more detail, finer details, all these are not mentioned, which we cannot understand. But the final conclusion is there in the Bhagavatam, and nothing beats that. But the depth of even Bhagavatam, although it is very deep and very, the most elevated scripture known to man on earth, but in the higher planets, more information is revealed, more, you know, details are revealed. Okay? And even in this planet, if one becomes a pure devotee, then so many more details are revealed. Hmm. This study is exclusively reserved only for those who are in communion with God. This is another important thing. This study, the study of philosophy, is exclusively reserved only for those who are in communion with God. That means they're talking to God. In that stage, if they are, then they are, you know, qualified to actually study these different scriptures and understand them and find the unifying factor in all these religions, which is to surrender to Krishna, to surrender to God. Now, he of course explains more. He comes to the point of form and everything, all this. Let's get first. Let's read. Let's read on. They and only they know that food given to an infant differs from what is given to an adult. Now, this is very nice example, excellent example. So only we have already said, dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajano yenagata sapantha. Only the careful, the religious principles are carefully hidden in the heart of a pure devotee, and only he can know the motive or the instructions of all religious systems. Only he understands. And he also understands then only they and only they know that food given to an infant differs from what is given to an adult. Now, an infant can only digest milk and that's it, soft food, whereas adults they can eat, chili sometimes. They can eat many things which the infant cannot, obviously. So the principle of filling the stomach with food and which thereby translates into nutrition and strength in the body, that principle remains the same whether for a child or an adult. But what detail of food is given, that may differ. So, all religious systems point to the same thing. Krishna. They may call him in different names, but he's Krishna. Now, the specific prescriptions, details may differ, and that is because infant and adult. And we consider the Bhagavatam as Nirmatsaranam Satam, Amalam Puranam, for the adults, for the mature adults, for the most advanced mature adults. In adults means in the sense of spiritual maturation. Those who are absolute beginners, that is infant. And other religious systems, they cater to these class of people. But it's not that it's to demean them. No, not at all. It is just to understand why these scriptures have these differences. Okay, but they're both conducive. So reading on, but they're both conducive to the respective growth of their recipients. So both religious systems, this or that, are conducive to the respective growth of their recipients. All are being educated for the same purpose, that is to love God and serve Him. All quarrels cease there. So quarrels arise when we don't understand. I mean, there are quarrels documented between religions. If you see, there have been crusades, that means wars between Christians and Muslims. And then there have been this invasion of Bharat, India, by the Mughals, the Muslims, and how they tore down so many temples and this and that. All this happens because they don't understand. They don't try to understand the actual fundamental principle of religion, which is to love God and love through Him everybody. And that is what actually this Islam means: making peace with God and making peace with all the living entities. So, if I want to make peace, how can I kill? Therefore, if you actually observe, no religion really allows you to kill. No religion. Even though it is offered as a concession, it is only because, to see that, oh, this person cannot restrict himself at all. Okay, you just do it under restriction. So in that way it is allowed, but actually, if you can, better not eat meat at all. If you at all are interested in your own welfare. So that is a point that has been made in all these scriptures. So all quarrels cease there where cease means stop. Stop where when we understand the true intent and the ultimate aim of these religious principles of different religions, then we can unify everyone under one umbrella. And this is the way to go about it. Now, there are three parts to this article. Now, we have finished the part one of it. Now, you see, to be continued. So, I don't think I have the capacity to continue today. Because what is the time first? Already 10 o'clock. And actually, I'm very tired. So, we will continue this very refined dialogue between the Moulvi and Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, which I'm assuming is Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. So that is, we have to study this because usually I never find much material of Islam. Actually, Prabhupada, he quoted something about Christianity like "Thou shalt not kill" and "Hallowed be thy name, from dawn to dusk, thou art in heaven." So these kind of things I have heard, but some references from Bible, but Quran never really. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke to the Islamic scholars of his time. So this is something we as Vaishnavas should know very well. Comparative religion. Comparative religion means not to compare and just say that we are better. To actually elevate the other person also. To train him to see the commonality in these different religions and the ultimate purpose of all these religious systems in the first place. So then, yes, everybody makes advancement. So, in fact, there is a book by Bhaktivinoda Thakur which says Chaitanya Shikshamrita, I think. which has all the different philosophies, and he debunks all of them, all the claims of those philosophy. Not simply to, like, in a competitive mood of, I will destroy you, destroy this explanation of this religion. Nothing like that. In fact, harmonizing all the ideas of all religious systems under the umbrella of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, soon the world will have one religion, which is the Harinam Sankirtan, the Gaudiya Vaishnavism. That will be the religion of the world. But and he said the day will come very soon. That means that auspicious day, we have to work towards that. So we have to conquer in the sense not exploit them, conquer and make them happy by our preaching, effective preaching. Hmm? All right, so that was a very, very refined dialogue, and it will be continued. And I will have to stop here for today. Thank you all very much for attending and participating. I will take any questions if you have, um, and after that we'll wrap up. Okay. Okay. So what do we have? Hanuman Verma. Islam claims that Muhammad died in 632 CE and that the Muslims conquered the adjacent Byzantine Empire within a few years. Historically speaking, there is no evidence for this. Well, see, this is where you do not know really, you have not been there. But anyway, this is not the line of argument or line of discussion that we want to take. It does not benefit anyone. If a historical fact, historical incident is a fact or not, or these are peripheral issues. These are just, they're not the core issue at all. This is the drama around the issue. We're not interested in the drama. We're interested in the issue at hand, which is to actually academically understand what the Quran says and try to explain using our Bhagavad understanding or our Krishna consciousness understanding and convince the other person. And we don't need to be, as you can see in this whole conversation, one thing to observe in this conversation is that Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura was not in a hurry to convince the other person. He in fact asked questions. Is it not like this? Is it like this? He was not in a hurry to convince him. He took every single argument, you know, opened it, destroyed every single argument, and presented to him the truth. So he took it one by one, one by one. Everything, every point that the Moulvi has raised, Bhaktisiddhānta Saraswati Thakur unpacked it, gave his rebuttal, irrefutable rebuttal, and then the conversation went forward in that way. So we can learn how to even handle these kinds of conversations, apart from the philosophy itself, how it is being handled in a respectful manner, in a dignified manner. Of course, there are times when rascals have to be called out as rascals. That's another thing. But if that person is actually ready to listen, then civil language is very much you know welcome, very much needed. Um, Criticism is for to protect others. If you, it's like we criticize Sadhguru, we criticize Gaur Gopal, we criticize Zakir Naik. So that is to protect others, to show how wrong of even there is no hate. There's no hate. There's zero hate. There's only expression of disagreement and from the viewpoint of Shastra. So in this very unemotional way, one has to deal with the arguments step by step by step by step. Every single thing is being handled by Prabhupada's, by Bhaktisiddhānta Saraswati Thakur so nicely, so expertly. Every single point of the argument, in the Moulvi's argument. So, yeah, I will. What is Hanuman Verma again? Hindus wrote fewer narratives of Islam in the last 1000 years than Christians wrote in the first few decades of exposure to Islam. Doesn't matter. Can we ask questions during or after lecture? Now you can ask questions end of the okay. What is your rate for performing a rendition of Sri Mahishasura Mardini Stotram? Even if you give me $1 billion, I will not do it. Is Sai Baba a Kamel Peer? No, never, definitely not. I don't know what that is. I really like rebuttal of Joker Nayak. No, Zakir Nayak. Zakir Nayak, he said Joker Nayak. Okay, so I think there's not much of a question there, right? Yeah. So we'll stop here. जय श्री भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, ताय गौर प्रेमानंद, हरि हरि बोल, हरे कृष्णा।